Let's talk about launch. I've had the chance 3 times to wake up in the morning knowing that by bedtime I was going to be off the planet. I've launched on 3 different rocket ships, twice in the space shuttle and once in the Russian Soyuz. So imagine if you knew that before you went to sleep tonight you were going to leave Earth. And when you went to sleep, that you would be effortlessly floating, weightless in space. Or you'd be dead. Those are the 2 possible outcomes to the day. It's, it kind of changes how you treat the day, What do you have for breakfast on a day like that? Oh, I'd recommend, if you're going on a space flight, I'd recommend you eat something creamy. Because you're going to see it again later, probably. And you may as well make it something colorful, Anyway, so you wake up that morning, and my first 2 launches were from Florida at the Kennedy Space Center. Let's talk about why. So here's the world spinning, and if you think about it, the world is about 40,000 kilometers or 25,000 miles around the equator, and it spins once every 24 hours. So if you think about it, if you were down at the World Cup right now, without even doing anything, you'd be going about 1,000 miles an hour, just by being on the equator. So if you want to launch a spaceship, you want to launch it on the equator going east, because it's already going 1,000 miles an hour. And that's why every country tries to launch as close to the equator as possible to get the natural spin of the world. So when I flew with the Russians, we launched from Baikonur, Kazakhstan, way down in the south. And when I flew with the Americans, we launched from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And I woke up in quarantine. We'd been in medical quarantine for about a week so you don't catch a cold. And got up that morning, got myself dressed. NASA chose my clothes for me. What do you wear to go to space? And when they laid out my clothes and I looked at them, it was black socks, so I put on my black socks, and then my diaper. And it was a big boy pull-up diaper, though, so put it on, got my diaper, and at the time, Johnson & Johnson put little pink and blue astronauts in our diapers for us. So, I was feeling pretty imagine what I looked like standing there in my pink and blue astronaut diaper with my black socks, feeling every inch a hero. And then into the suit-up room. And how do you get there? How do you accomplish a dream like that? And for me, what started it all was when I was 9 years old. 9 years old, watching the first 2 people walk on the moon. I decided to be an astronaut that day when I was 9 years old. And the guys that had gone to the moon, Mike and Neil and Buzz Aldrin, they had gotten dressed in the same room at the Kennedy Space Center that I was getting dressed in, sat in the same big cracked red leather chair. So it was really surreal to be following in something that had been a long-term goal for me that was now no longer pretend, no longer a simulation, but actually happening. They built the pressure suit around my body, we got in the bus, you drive out towards the launch pad, and sitting in that bus, driving closer and closer in the distance, your spaceship is sitting on a pad. And it's the Kennedy Spaceport. It's like a seaport or an airport. But it's a spaceport. It's where we leave Earth and come back again. There's only a couple in the world. And your rocket ship is getting bigger and bigger. And as you drive out towards it, of course, everybody else is driving away from your rocket ship. Because it's about a 4.5 million pound bomb sitting out there that you're about to go sit on, and someone's going to light the fuse underneath it. You hope all the hot stuff comes out one direction. You get in an elevator, and you ride up about 20 stories up the big launch pad in the Space Shuttle Atlantis. And And then when you get out and you got to walk the long, skinny walkway from the launch tower out to the hatch of the spaceship, whichever NASA engineer that designed it, for whatever reason, they made it like a great floor, an open floor, 200 feet above the ground in Florida. And I'm kind of afraid of heights. So to me, you know, you're trying to look brave walking out to your spaceship, but it looks like you're walking on nothing, like Don Knotts into your spaceship. But then you get into the white room, it's a tent, nestled against the shuttle, you put on your harness, there's a hole in the wall, you get on your hands and knees, and you crawl into your spaceship. And the space shuttle is sitting like that. So it's weird to climb into. Imagine if you were getting into your car when you went out to the parking lot over at the Walmart afterwards here, and your car was sitting like that when you climbed in. You know, you stand on the back window and you crawl up into your seat. Finally, you're laying on your back, in your seat, in your spaceship, and there's an astronaut in there whose job it is to make sure that you didn't bump anything on the way in, because you're wearing this huge, heavy pressure suit, and the space shuttle is the most complicated flying machine ever built. The most capable, but most complicated flying machine. And as a result, it has about 500 switches in the cockpit. And if you kick one, you die. So, really, so now there's an astronaut after you blundered your way up into the seat who's there making sure all the switches are exactly where they're supposed to be, and then straps you in, and then closes up the hatch. Oh, just before he closed the hatch, he handed me a note from my wife, which said, I love you, please don't die. And then in brackets, I have insurance. With a little smiley face. It's good if you're an astronaut to marry somebody practical. And then the astronaut said to me, and she gave me a kiss for you. And I'm like laying on my back, strapped in. And he leans over and kisses me on the forehead. And I remember thinking, you know, if I do die today, did that have to be my last memory? But eventually, everybody's got a wet forehead, and he gathers all the gear and goes out and closes the hatch. And now, it's real. Now, you know, I decided when I was 9, it's 26 years later of training and anticipating and hoping and trying to get myself ready, but now it's real. And with every second ticking on the clock, the chances of actually going to space get higher and higher. About 5 minutes before launch, the pilot reaches over and throws 3 switches, and that powers up the hydraulics, and it's like suddenly pumping blood into the veins of the space shuttle, and it pulses to life underneath you, like a big robot that just came awake. And about 3.5 minutes before launch, we test all of the flight control surfaces, the big surfaces moving, the huge engines on the back swing around, and there's so much mass, it makes the whole vehicle sway underneath you like some giant Frankenstein monster just coming to life and palpably moving under you. And about 30 seconds before launch, the vehicle is completely ready. It's no longer needs forward. Everything is checked out. All the computers are good. The vehicle is ticking down. About 15 seconds before launch, the engines start to light. We fire some sparklers to burn off any excess hydrogen. And this is what happens. quite a ride. It's crazy. It is such a brute force to plane to just push yourself up through the atmosphere. It has 80 million horsepower to lift up. It burns fuel at 12 tons a second just to force a way through the atmosphere. It's just a raw, stupid power. It's like a dumb way to get to space, but it's the best one we've come up with so far. You are going faster than the speed of sound in 45 seconds, straight up, accelerating. And you're higher and faster than the Concorde in 70 seconds. You're above Mach 2. The vehicle is just forcing its way up. It's really rough on you. You're squished in your chair by the heavy acceleration. But because it's forcing its way through the atmosphere, the vibration is really high. You can't even focus on the instruments in front of you. You have to grab on